If you were fixing your bra straps, fussing with wires, or battling your bra during this podcast, stop right now. You'll want to hear this. Those bra problems, those problems you thought you had to live with, Third Love has solved them. Their bras make it easy to get what you want, whether it's ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or stopping your shirt buttons from pulling. With over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, you'll never be stuck between two sizes that don't fit. So stop settling for bad bras. Now's the time to treat yourself and get your problem solved. Save $15 on your first order with code podcast15 at thirdlove.com.
This is Below Deck's Captain Lee. Listen to my new podcast, Salty, with Captain Lee.
Don't you mean our podcast?
Yeah, I guess I do. Anyhow, listen to Salty with Captain Lee, co-hosted by my assistant, Sam. And we will be talking about the latest pop culture news and all the gossip every week.
So does this mean we have to talk by ourselves, about ourselves, or can we at least have some guests on?
I don't know, I find myself pretty interesting, but yeah, we can have some guests on, some of our reality TV friends, and some stars.
Works for me. Listen to Salty now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 328 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay. I'm sitting here nursing my plantar's fish...
Focaccia, as you called it earlier. Your plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah. And you have been talking about it a lot.
Because it's really been hurting me today.
I get you. We all have our issues. We seem to have more of them the older we get.
That's it. That is true.
There's no doubt about that.
More aches and pains when I get up to move around.
Hey, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had I Am Sophie Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Shannon in San Diego.
Right there where Carmen is.
Yep. Where in the world? DC Smith.
What's up, DC?
Meg Klingman.
Hey, Meg.
David Thorne.
Appreciate that, David.
Dara Jordan.
What's up, Jordan?
Maria Johansdotter.
Ah, Maria.
Jumped out at her highest level.
Yeah, awesome.
Tanya Robinson.
Hey, Tanya.
Jessica Lasowski.
Easy for you to say.
No, because I've messed it up multiple times.
Mike Lakowski.
Catherine Gallup.
What's going on, Gallupo?
Did you say Gallupo? Oh, you said Gallup pole. Okay. Yeah. It went so fast, I thought you said Gallopole.
I'm a fast talker.
Yeah.
Not really.
You just ran it together. But I get it now. Nancy Trujillo.
Hey, Nancy.
Spring Pierce jumped out at her highest level.
Love that name, Spring.
Lauren Gilmore.
Hey, Lauren.
And last but not least, Jay Kelly.
What's up, JK?
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected James Rowe.
Man, thanks, James, for hanging in there with us.
Yeah, appreciate the new Patreon support, the continued support. We also had a couple of great PayPal donations from David Regan.
Hey, thanks, Regan.
And Matthew Whalen.
Well, that's awesome, Whalen.
Yep, thanks to everyone. Gibbs, we have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time where we're talking about Malik Kearney. This is a man who was married to a woman named Carlin. They were both in the Army, and he was seeing a bunch of people. She was seeing a few people too, but he didn't want her to be with anybody else. She wanted to leave him, and things went south.
Yeah. Interesting case, though.
It really is. And, how he established his alibi and pulled other people in. So definitely check that one out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We're talking about the unsolved murder of Elizabeth Salgado. 26-year-old Elizabeth Salgado came from Mexico to Provo, Utah to attend a language school. She had been in the U.S. for less than a month when she went missing. Her remains were found 3 years later, in a remote area, but her murder remains unsolved. Elizabeth Elena Laguna Salgado was born on November 6, 1988. Elizabeth lived in the state of Chiapas in Mexico. She was one of 7 children. Her family had been members of the LDS Church since 2004. Elizabeth taught Sunday school at her local church.
I can't imagine having 6 brothers or sisters. It was bad enough having 2. Just joking to my brothers, but that's a lot.
Well, I can definitely not imagine it being an only child.
Right.
So that would be, very hard for me to even imagine what a dinner table is like.
Well, probably not going to have seconds or thirds in your case.
Maybe some people aren't going to get firsts.
Well, that's true.
Is it survival of the fastest? Who can scoop out the quickest and eat the fastest?
Might be.
Libertad Salgado, Elizabeth's mother, said that as the oldest girl, she set the example for her siblings and was a loving daughter. And I think that's true in a lot of families.
Yeah.
If you're the oldest, especially if you've got, 6, 7 brothers and sisters, a lot is expected of the oldest.
I agree with that. I think my brother had a lot on his shoulders. He did a good job with it.
Just messing with the two of you.
Yeah. Good thing it wasn't me leading the pack.
Yeah, things would have went south pretty quickly. But what a huge job to take care of 7 children. Sure. You're going to need help. And as the oldest, I think more often than not, you're expected to pick up certain duties. And maybe the second oldest has some duties and it flows down the line. But by far, the oldest is going to have the most.
Everybody has to chip in. But yeah, I agree with you. The oldest is definitely picking up the bigger piece of the workload.
Elizabeth graduated from the Tuxtla Gutierrez Institute of Technology with a degree in industrial engineering. After graduation, she told her mother that she wanted to serve a mission for her church. So I'm really, getting just an amazing picture of Elizabeth. Sounds like she was a good student. She was ambitious. She got this degree in industrial engineering. Probably not the easiest degree to obtain.
Right.
She was a loving daughter. She helped out at home. And, she taught Sunday school.
Giving up a lot of your time.
Yeah. And then after graduation, tells her mother that she wanted to serve a mission for her church. So she obviously was very devoted to the church. In May 2013, Elizabeth went on a 1.5 year mission in Mexico. She returned home in November 2014. She then decided that she wanted to move to the U.S. to study English. She planned to stay for 8 months and then move to Mexico City for work. Elizabeth told her mother that she had done some research and felt like Provo, Utah was a safe city. She earned a scholarship to the Nomen Global Language Center in Provo.
Sounds like they're doing everything the right way, researching, found a good location, smart enough that she got the scholarship. Mm-hmm. Things are looking good.
Yeah, and I would say, all things considered, Provo, Utah probably is a pretty safe city compared to some others. Now, I wonder where the Church of Latter-day Saints fit into her decision-making process.
Well, probably a big piece of that.
I would think so. Elizabeth moved to Provo on March 23rd, 2015. And we mentioned it, right? She would only be in the United States for less than a month before she went missing. Elizabeth moved into an apartment with roommates. Her roommates didn't speak Spanish, and she didn't know a lot of English. She told her mom that she wanted to move out because her roommates were always bringing people over. They didn't clean, and they didn't try to talk to her.
Well, that's kind of rough. Well, if you can't communicate with your roommate.
Or if they don't want to even try.
Right.
Plus, it sounds like maybe they were messy. I'm kind of going through some of this with my freshman college daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
She's meeting her roommates for the first time. Now, I'm not saying they don't want to talk to her. I'm not saying they're messy. I'm not saying anything bad about them. But it's tough.
Sure it is. You're getting to know each other for the first time.
And no matter how great these people are. They're not going to do everything maybe the way that you do it, or the way you want it done. Because my daughter is very particular about certain things.
As your wife is too.
As my wife is.
I've had many dinners here, and I know that when I rinse the plate to put it in the dishwasher, it's not rinsed the correct way.
Oh, no.
And she makes sure that I re-rinse it.
Sometimes she will take them back out when you're not looking, and use like a pad, a scour pad. My thought is always, that is what the dishwasher is for.
Because I know you have a really good dishwasher.
It is a very nice one. I'm pretty sure it's built to clean these dishes.
Yeah, I think you could put the plate in there with the food on it, and somehow it takes care of it.
But my wife feels the need to clean the dishes before the dishwasher does its job.
Yeah.
I do not. But, back to Elizabeth. This is not always the easiest thing. Moving in with people you don't know, there's bound to be some friction. You're not going to get along on certain things. She moved into a different apartment 10 days later. Her roommates at this apartment were from Korea. So Elizabeth didn't speak to them much either. She spent most of her time in her room.
Well, you have that language barrier now with two different languages. It's going to make it rough.
Well, and my thought is this language barrier was probably even tougher.
Yeah.
Because she did speak some English. I don't know that she spoke any Korean. And I don't know that, any of these roommates from South Korea spoke any English at all.
Yeah. Korean's a difficult language to learn.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that when you mastered it.
Yes.
Elizabeth soon got a job waiting tables at a local Mexican restaurant. She liked her job because she could practice speaking English with the customers. Most of Elizabeth's family lives in Mexico, but she had two uncles who lived in the U.S. Her uncle, Rudenberth Salgado, lived in the nearby city of Orem. Her uncle, Rosenberg Salgado, lived in California. Rudy visited Elizabeth at work so she wouldn't feel so homesick. That sounds like a good uncle.
Yeah. Check in on your niece every now and then.
Yeah, so he's in Utah. I don't know how far Orem is from Provo, but
it's like an hour.
I didn't think it was that far. Elizabeth also talked to her mom and siblings every day, either by phone or through messaging apps.
Well, I think that's just the way everybody communicates today.
Well, and it's much easier, right? If we were telling this story and it was 40 years earlier, you know how expensive calls were from country to country?
Oh my gosh.
Now with your cell phone, you can get an international plan.
Yeah.
And messaging apps are free. So yeah, much easier to communicate. Elizabeth attended church at the Provo Young Single Adults, 140th Ward. A young man named Mackie Smith was assigned to be what was called her ministering brother at church. He talked to Elizabeth several times, but he later said he didn't know her that well. He described Elizabeth as friendly, helpful, and someone who saw the good in everyone. According to Smith, there was a big group at their congregation that could speak Spanish and wanted to practice with Elizabeth. So that was probably really good for her. Not only could she help them with their Spanish,
right?
She was probably talking to them. They were helping her with her English.
Yeah, it goes both ways. I did find it strange that Mackie said he knew her, but then he kind of said, I didn't know her that well. Like he pulled back.
Yeah. I mean, he was assigned to be what was called this ministering brother, but according to him, he only talked to her several times. Well, it's hard to know someone too well.
That's true.
If you've only talked to them a handful of times, but I think the amateur detective in all of us looks at that maybe with kind of the eye that you're looking at it with and saying, well, why is he pulling back? Is there a reason?
See my eyebrow up a little bit?
A little bit.
Not my painted one, but my real one.
Your real one. The last time Smith said he spoke to Elizabeth was to tell her that he couldn't give her a ride to a church activity because he was sick. Now, Elizabeth was described as a beautiful young woman, and it was said that many men were interested in her. They tried to ask her out, but her mother recalled that Elizabeth said she was focused on work and school, not dating.
Now, we said she was 26, but I'm telling you, she doesn't look 26. She looks a lot younger.
Yeah, I think you said when we were talking on Patreon this week that, if you just saw her, you thought maybe she looked 18.
Yeah. But what a smart young lady, right? She's there for a reason, to focus, to learn English so she can go back to Mexico City with this new knowledge.
Yeah, and my thought is probably going to help her land a better job. Right? Obviously, she already knows Spanish, but if you also know English, anytime you know multiple languages, can speak multiple languages, that gives you a leg up on the competition.
I mean, it's definitely helped me.
Very much. Not in podcasting.
No.
But in your regular life.
With my multiple lingual languages.
Yes. How come every time you try to sound like you know what you're talking about, then you say something else that really gives it away?
You think?
Yeah, you kind of do. But it's funny. I enjoy it. Elizabeth Salgado went missing on Thursday, April 16th, 2015. She was last seen by her classmates that afternoon. 3 classmates saw Elizabeth walking north. She was heading back to her apartment, which was about 18 blocks away. Her phone pinged for the last time from a tower near the school. Elizabeth's normal walking route was on a busy street with vehicle and pedestrian traffic. She also went missing in the middle of the day. So, all these facts are interesting. She's on her normal route. You've got a lot of cars. You also have a lot of pedestrians, and it's the middle of the day.
But with it being in the middle of the day, sometimes that's not a great thing, because when you're commuting back and forth, trying to get to your school or to your job, you're concentrating on that, not really paying attention to what's going around you. So just because it's in the middle of the day doesn't mean that it should have been something somebody saw.
No, I guess I get what you're saying, but the chances that somebody would have seen something are much higher than if I said she was walking back to her apartment at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think what I was trying to say is that the commuters are focused on going to wherever they're going, and maybe they're not paying attention to what's happening on the sidewalk or just around them generally. But if you're going to be abducted during the day, I think you have a greater chance of being seen than at nighttime. I absolutely agree.
However, Rosenberg Salgado told the Salt Lake Tribune that a classmate saw Elizabeth go into a restroom, but no one saw her leave, and security cameras did not capture her leaving the building. So maybe that kind of makes our point a little bit moot, because if she's not taken off the street, then middle of the day, night, maybe doesn't make as much of a difference.
Right.
If she's kind of goes into a more secluded place and something happens to her there. At 1:30 p.m., Elizabeth texted her Uncle Rudy to ask for a ride to Walmart. He responded that he would take her. At 2:30 p.m., she messaged her sister, Sarah. According to the news outlet KSL, Sarah texted Elizabeth, "I love you. What are you doing?" She responded, "I just left school." About 30 minutes later, Sarah said, "Cool, have you arrived?" And the app they were using to message each other indicates if a message has been read. It showed that Elizabeth never read Sarah's message.
Which those apps do that. We were just talking about that on True Crime all the time.
Yes.
And how it frustrates you to see that people don't read your messages, but more so when they read your messages
and don't respond. Especially my daughters.
Yes.
But I do think that this starts to put the timeline together a little bit, right? 1:30, we know what she was doing, or at least texting. 2:30, she's messaging. But between 2:30 and 3, it seems as though that's when something may have occurred, because she never read the message sent by her sister Sarah at 3 p.m.
And it sounds like in the past she would have always read her message. because of the pretty close.
Yeah, no, I think so. Rosenberg Salgado told ABC4 that the tone of Elizabeth's last message was not her style. She was always very affectionate when she was talking to her sisters and to any of her family members. So let's go back to the 2:30 message. She responded with, "I just left school." Okay. He's saying that doesn't sound like her, but you never know. People have bad days. They're curt.
Right.
Whether they're talking to you in person or texting with you. But if he's correct, then maybe the timeline has to be backed up a little bit.
Because somebody else could have had her phone.
And could have sent that text.
I mean, if her sister said, "I love you," and she always says, "I love you back," and this time she's not, yeah.
There could be something to it.
Sure. I mean, you text me and you normally start off with, "Hey, Gibby, what do you want to eat? By the way, I love you." And I'm like, I never respond back like that. You know?
Yeah. And if you did, I would say, man, that's not his style, but I really dig it.
Yeah.
Angie's List is now Angie, the home to skilled neighborhood professionals. Angie is your home for everything home, and they've made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. If you own a home, you know how much work it can take, whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality. It can be hard just to know where to start, but now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Angie has over 20 years of home service experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions, and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect instantly. And all of that means you can take care of just about any home project in just a few taps, because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. Rudy Salgado came to Elizabeth's apartment at 5 to take her to Walmart, but no one answered the door. He walked for about 5 minutes, then called Elizabeth. The call went to voicemail. He drove to Walmart to see if someone else had given her a ride, and maybe she just forgot to tell him. He then went to the restaurant to see if she was working. One of Elizabeth's coworkers told him that it was her day off. Rudy assumed she made other plans and forgot to text him. In the past, she had mentioned that she was involved in church activities. So he assumed she was out having fun with her friends and really didn't suspect that anything was wrong at that time.
What a great uncle, right? I mean, he could have just said, "Yep, she's not here." But he knew that his niece most likely wouldn't do something like that. So he searched for her. You know, he wanted to find out. Did she end up going to Walmart without me? Did she end up going to work? Let me go see what I can find out. Just not going to leave it at she's not here and drive off.
Yeah, no, I get that. But it also, does it make sense that, you know, when he goes to these different places, he still doesn't find her, but he doesn't jump to this, whoa, something is so terribly wrong conclusion. I don't think most people would. I don't think he has enough information to do that yet.
No, at this point, he just knows where she's not.
But Elizabeth still hadn't messaged or called anyone by the next morning. Her mom was worried and asked Rudy to go to the language school. He learned that there were no classes on Fridays. So he went back to the apartment, but Elizabeth's roommate said they hadn't seen her. Elizabeth's passport and her belongings were still in her apartment. The family then learned that Elizabeth didn't show up to work and hadn't called in. And this is kind of the part of, you know, the unsolved stories that we always talk about. You know, it's concerning, it's out of the ordinary. When does it become something's really wrong? And I think it's at this point.
Yeah, this is when you're getting nervous.
We've already talked about, you know, what a great person this is. Sounds like she had a pretty good work ethic. She's probably one of those individuals who, if for some reason she couldn't make it, she would have at least called. So once they find that out, now you have to become very concerned, especially when you add in the stuff from the day before and all of that.
Right. This is when you were jumping on a plane in Mexico to come to Utah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Her parents reported her missing to the local police. A patrol officer went to the apartment, and the police tried to ping her phone, but they found that it had been turned off. The police returned to the apartment the next day. No one had seen Elizabeth in 3 days, and her roommates did not remember her coming home. So the police tried to establish a timeline of Elizabeth's movements. They found no recent activity on her phone or bank account. And I say it a lot, but to me, this is never a good sign. You know, we're talking about a 26-year-old.
Yeah.
Most 26-year-olds, they're on that phone.
Absolutely.
Heck, almost everybody of every age now is glued to their phone.
Yeah.
Let's just face it. It doesn't really seem to even be an age thing for a lot of people anymore. That's concerning. And then, you know, how many days are you going to go without having any type of activity on your bank account?
Yeah.
You don't need to stop for gas. You're not going to stop in and get a coffee somewhere.
She doesn't have her passport, so it's not like she went back to Mexico.
No. I mean, just think about the things we buy every day.
Yeah.
Whether you take money out of the ATM and pay cash for it, or like a lot of us do, you just use your debit card everywhere you go, but you're constantly buying something.
Can't even drink water without paying for it now.
Really? Because I just fill my Brita up and it's almost free.
You got to pay that water bill.
I don't buy Voss like you. I don't live high on the hog.
I don't buy Voss. I don't buy Voss. I buy Was. The off-brand.
The off-brand?
Yes. It's a little like murky color.
Dark, a little darker?
A little darker.
Than the Voss?
Yeah.
But you have to admit, right? These are all bad signs. The Provo police chief said that although there was no evidence of a kidnapping, the disappearance was suspicious because Elizabeth was a responsible person who normally talked to her family every day. And that's another huge thing that comes up in a lot of cases. Now, some people who go missing don't regularly talk to their family, but a lot of them do.
Yeah.
And I know I've used the example before. My wife talks to her mother at least once, if not multiple times a day. She also talks to me multiple times a day too. But if I call her mom and say, hey, have you talked to her today? And she says no, and I haven't talked to her. And then another day goes by and none of us have heard from her.
You're worried.
Something is extremely wrong because it is a routine. Rosenberg Salgado told the police about a boy from school who wanted to date Elizabeth and was upset when she rejected him. He only knew the man's first name. Local detective Darren Ringel searched databases and found the student's address. He talked to the young man and his friends. All their stories matched up. He was cooperative and allowed a detective to look through his car and his residence. The police also verified his alibi. He was at the school on the afternoon of April 16th. So I get it, maybe a promising lead. Was this, man so enraged that Elizabeth spurned his advances that he did something to her? Sounds like no.
It sounds like he's in the clear.
Yeah. I mean, based on everything that police learned. The other thing that I think it shows you is you never quite know what's going to happen in a day. Better have your alibis. Shouldn't be like by yourself too much. Should be around some people or leave some trail that police can nail you down on.
Well, that's why I always use my alibi app.
The one you invented?
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
I know you've thought about putting it on, but then you want to keep it for yourself. I get it.
It's still in testing.
Beta.
They
call it beta.
Yeah, so they call it beta. Shortly moving to alpha.
Detective Ringel went back to the school on Monday, April 20th, to see if Elizabeth came to class, but she wasn't there. He learned that a group of students had seen Elizabeth at a nearby intersection on the day she went missing. The Provo police interviewed all known sex offenders in the area, as well as Elizabeth's roommates and students and staff at the school, but they couldn't develop any solid leads on Elizabeth's whereabouts. You know, in a lot of unsolved cases, it seems as though one of the first things that police do is start to interview all known sex offenders in the area.
Yeah.
I get why they do that. And these people shouldn't have done whatever they did to get themselves on the list, but I feel like they're probably interviewed quite often.
Well, when you do bad things,
you get interviewed?
You get interviewed.
Okay.
Yeah.
On April 24th, 2018, Elizabeth's family pleaded for help at a news conference. Elizabeth Smart and her father, Ed Smart, attended the press conference. Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped when she was 14 years old and survived for 9 months before she was found. The Smarts emphasized that one of the main reasons Elizabeth was found was because the public knew what she looked like and what happened to her. And everyone knows the case of Elizabeth Smart. Amazing that, she and her father would show up and try to help this family.
Yeah, they're supporting this family. And they, unlike others there, actually understood what was going on in the family's mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because unless you've been through it, there's really no way to fully comprehend the magnitude of, everything they're going through. At the press conference, the police asked the public for help finding a new person of interest, a construction worker who was a regular at Elizabeth's workplace. This man made Elizabeth uncomfortable, and she felt like he was harassing her. According to her uncle Rosenberg, he told her, "Just stop working here. I will do anything for you. I will just buy you everything you need." The restaurant staff informed the police the man was still in town. When he came to the restaurant, the manager actually followed him and notified the police department. Investigators found him at home. He allowed the police to search his residence, and he had a verifiable alibi. And a lot of people allowing the police to search their residence. Now, we kind of touched on this a little bit on TCAT this week.
Yeah.
Either you are very, very comfortable knowing that you didn't do anything wrong, or you're very cocky.
And you think you're smarter than the police.
Yes. Now, the fact that he had a verifiable alibi kind of makes it seem as though he felt comfortable because he knew he hadn't done anything wrong. The first search party was organized on April 25th, 2015. Hundreds of people walked Elizabeth's route from school to her apartment, and they passed out flyers. 2 more searches took place in May. On April 30th, the body of a Hispanic female was found in a suitcase on Interstate 80 near the Salt Air Resort. The Salgado family and investigators feared that the body was Elizabeth, but the woman was identified later that year as a missing person from Las Vegas.
That alone, alarming, a body in a suitcase.
Yeah, and how often do we talk about, the roller coaster of emotions that, these families go through? Just imagine this body being found at the end of April.
Yeah.
But it taking months and months to identify and find out. That whole time you're worried. Is this the body of, our loved one? And then you find out it's not, which is a relief, but there's knowledge that another woman has been killed. In June 2015, an unidentified man called Elizabeth's uncle Rosenberg, claiming to have her and demanding a ransom. The FBI determined the ransom call was a hoax. And I'm telling you what, I don't care where a story takes place. Doesn't seem to matter what time frame in which it takes place. There is always someone out there trying to profit off the misery of others.
Yeah, it's shameful, man.
It really is. I mean, look at one of these big storms that, decimates an entire area. But you have these fake contractors who come in, take people's money, take advantage of people. These individuals go missing. You have some people who just want to call the family and mess with them. This person's trying to actually get money out of the family.
Yeah.
It's despicable. With no other leads panning out, the police considered the possibility that Elizabeth's uncles were involved in her disappearance. Both uncles took a voice analysis test and a polygraph administered by an FBI expert. According to Detective Darren Ringel, Rudy's results were inconclusive and Rosenberg failed the test. The two men told the show Disappeared that they thought the outcomes of their tests were affected by the stress they were going through.
It very well could be.
And it could be. And you know how I feel about polygraph tests.
Well, I know. You gave me one.
Although it was surprisingly accurate.
Yeah.
For something that I bought off Amazon.
Or was I just that good?
We don't know. But now I got to talk about the uncles. You know, we've kind of said they seem like good guys, right? They were willing to help out. Now all of a sudden, the police think, well, it could be them. And why? Because they've run out of leads.
Yeah.
They got to look at, you know, somebody else. Now, I would have thought that they would have had to have looked at the uncles anyway, right? And the family,
Sure.
anyone close. But both these guys were willing to take polygraph tests. One inconclusive, one said to have failed. I don't know what that means. I really don't.
Well, I think it means they need to take a closer look at them.
Yeah. And I think they did by obtaining warrants for their cell phone providers, which verified their alibis. So the cell phone data cleared them of any suspicion. But that had to be very tough on those guys.
I think so. I think anytime you're close to the victim and your heart's breaking because you don't know where the victim is and you're being accused of having a part in it, and all you're doing is trying to help find the victim, I think it stings.
Yeah. I think anytime there's even a whiff or a cloud of suspicion, it's going to be very tough.
Yeah.
Until that is quashed. Elizabeth's case went cold when the police found no new leads. In 2016, Rosenberg Salgado told Dateline that the family believed Elizabeth was being held against her will, saying, "We can't help thinking about what she is going through right now. Stress is really high. She could be anywhere at this point." In 2017, Sergeant Brian Taylor from the Provo Police Department told ABC4, "We've run down every possible lead, conducted searches, background checks, interviews. We sent a detective to Mexico, along with the FBI and Mexican federal police, to speak to her family in Mexico and see what we could learn from them."
So the police are doing everything they should be doing,
It does sound like that.
but it's not turning up anything.
No, they haven't really developed any leads. They got nothing. Then on May 18th, 2018, a man looking for camping spots found a skull and clothing in Hobble Creek Canyon, Utah. According to the Deseret News, the man walked 30 paces from the road to relieve himself, which is how he found the remains. Dental records confirm that the remains were the missing Elizabeth Salgado, and her body was publicly identified on May 23rd, 2018.
Well, that does a lot, right? It changes the investigation. It also, unfortunately, tells the family something. She's no longer missing. She's been murdered.
Yeah, so you go from a missing persons case to a murder investigation. On May 24th, the police said they were investigating Elizabeth's death as a homicide. A medical examiner was trying to determine her cause of death. Her remains did not show any signs of blunt force trauma, according to KUTV. Elizabeth was found 15 miles from where she was last seen in an area known for hiking, fishing, and camping. Utah County Sheriff Jim Tracy said investigators didn't know how or why Elizabeth ended up in Hobble Creek Canyon. So 15 miles it's a ways.
Yeah.
I mean, you would say very doubtful that she would try to walk there
I wouldn't think so.
just for kicks. I think you'd take that out of the equation. So what are you left with? she hitched a ride, she went with someone willingly, or somebody abducted her and took her out there against her will.
Yeah, or took her somewhere else and then eventually took her there to dump the body.
According to NBC, Sheriff Tracy said the remains were found off the road and in an area that you would not find by being on a trail. He also said, "We have persons of interest that we have interviewed and we will continue to interview. We are not labeling anyone a suspect at this time." So I do think that is interesting. You know, the distinction between a person of interest and a suspect, to me, is a big deal. You can have a lot of persons of interest, people you want to talk to. It doesn't mean you believe that they had anything to do with the crime. When you start throwing out the word suspect, to me, that is a lot more ominous. But the finding of the body, a lot of times, gives police a little bit more to go on. Now, if you can't establish the cause of death, I think that hurts somewhat. But at least you know now where she was and where she ended up. Because before it was, well, we have no idea. We can make the radius as big as we want because we don't know. Now maybe you've shrunk it to maybe a 15-mile radius.
Yeah.
Or maybe even smaller. But as you can imagine, right, Elizabeth's family was devastated when her remains were found. They had held out hope for 3 years that she was still alive. Elizabeth's mother told the news outlet KUTV, "I feel terrible. It's taken the life out of my soul. It's very painful. Why is it after 3 years I'm getting this news? It's incredible. It's incredible for me. I don't believe it." Elizabeth's aunt, Miriam Salgado, told people that they searched for her for 3 years. "Our hopes were high. We refused to give up. Everywhere we went, we were always looking, hoping that one day she would suddenly appear."
I bet.
Yeah, and this is something that I don't know that you hear all the time. You do hear, the families holding out hope. They believe that their loved one's going to be found alive. But think about this statement. Think about every place you went for 3 years, and all you did was scan every face at every place you went because you're hoping to spot Elizabeth.
Sure.
Just the thought of that and how taxing that would be.
Or even or on top of that, you actually thought you saw her and followed that person or chased down that individual to only find out it wasn't her.
Again, you're back to that roller coaster of emotions, right? Up and down, up and down. I also wonder, what type of toll this takes on the health of the family, the constant worry. How much sleep are you getting? If you're putting all of your energy into this one thing, well, how well are you really taking care of yourself? And for a lot of people, probably not very well.
I wonder, what it does to them once they realize she's been found. I think probably initially it's like devastating, of course.
Sure.
But does it also finally give you some answers and allows you to shift from this zone to now we're focused on, we have our child back, and now we're going to focus on finding who did this to her.
Yeah, shift focus for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it also takes some of it out of your hands, maybe.
Yeah.
You're not looking for her anymore everywhere you go.
Not wondering where she's at.
Yep, you're not doing that. It's really up to the police at this point to figure out who did it. Now, maybe you try to be involved in that, but I think that's a lot tougher than searching.
Right.
Sergeant Spencer Cannon from the Utah County Sheriff's Office told CBS that the discovery of the remains was what he called a lucky break because deputies had driven past the location dozens of times before. In June 2018, Elizabeth's family visited the site where her remains were found While they were there, they found more bones in the dirt, which were believed to belong to Elizabeth.
Now, I wonder how that made the family feel.
Well, we have heard this in a number of cases, and I don't really understand how it happens because, once those remains are found, that a team is going to be sent out there.
Yeah.
So if the team doesn't find it, then how does the family find it on a visit later?
Unless there's so much rain or something that occurs that
things get washed
Yeah.
into different locations. That's possible. In July 2018, Lieutenant Eric Knudsen from the sheriff's office told Fox 13 that they had their eye on a couple of people whom they didn't believe were telling the truth. Investigators were trying to establish an alibi for those individuals. So maybe a little bit of a ray of hope when you hear something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm sure the family has to be careful about getting their hopes up too high every time the police put out something, but maybe it's impossible not to, because you're going to be let down a lot when they later come out and say, well, we checked into it and it turns out, these people are cleared or whatever. On April 26, 2019, Elizabeth's mother confirmed with ABC4 that law enforcement told her Elizabeth's two front teeth were missing, which indicated she may have tried to fight off her killer.
Yeah, potentially. I think it's always tough when you find the remains so many years after because there's so many things missing.
Well, there's a lot of things that can happen in 3 years.
Yes.
When you talk about scavengers and animals and just things like that. But teeth are pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad speculation to make that maybe she fought her attacker. In February 2020, Jason Jensen, a PI working for Elizabeth's family and the co-founder of the Utah Cold Case Coalition, told NBC he believed Elizabeth was abducted by someone she knew because no one reported hearing screaming around the time she was last seen. And I think this goes back to our earlier talking point, which was crowded street, pedestrians, middle of the day. Would someone have seen an abduction in broad daylight or at the very least heard her screaming? And this guy says, yeah, they should have.
Yeah. But if she went with somebody she knew, then why would she scream?
Yeah, there'd be no screaming.
Yeah.
There would be nothing out of the ordinary for anyone to see. Now, Jensen also felt like Elizabeth's church friends should be questioned and noted that a source informed him she attended a church-related activity in the Hobble Creek Canyon area the weekend before she disappeared. The activity took place at Kelly's Grove Pavilion, according to KSL.
Which just means that individuals at the church knew this area.
Would be a little bit familiar with it.
Yeah, maybe knew how secluded it was.
Mm-hmm. That month, Sergeant Spencer Cannon told ABC4, dozens and dozens of people have been interviewed, and some of them knew Elizabeth through her involvement with the LDS Church. As for this Mackie Smith, saying that many young males wanting to ask her out, that would not be earth-shattering news. Elizabeth was a beautiful young woman. In the LDS community and attending an LDS ward, I would be more shocked if many young men didn't want to go out with her. A man wanting to go out with a woman is not terribly unusual. Of course, we look for those who might have wanted to go out with her and who might have something unusual about them to cause a stronger focus on them. But nothing like that, as you know, has led us to ID a solid suspect. So, everything that he is saying makes a lot of sense to me.
Sure.
What is the goal of many young men?
To find a girlfriend.
Yeah. To go out with, a beautiful young woman and go on a date and hopefully have it lead to something romantic. So he's saying it would be strange if a lot of young men didn't want to go out with her. On April 16, 2020, the Salgado family attorney, Carlos Trujillo, told KSL that they received the last of Elizabeth's autopsy results. He said there was no evidence as to a cause of death or a time of death or anything like that. So we are very saddened today with that news. And you mentioned it earlier, really tough when the remains are found 3 years later. You often don't have a lot to work with.
No, not much to go off of.
I mean, obviously there's no bullet hole in the skull. That would be something very obvious. I'm assuming they didn't find any marks on the bones that would have led them to believe a knife was involved or, something like that. The Utah Cold Case Coalition canvassed the site where Elizabeth's bones were found back in 2019. Using metal detectors, they found a penny under some leaves. The penny was sent out for DNA testing. Although they didn't know when exactly the penny was dropped, it could not be discounted due to the remoteness of the site. And I get it, right? That penny could have been dropped there.
Who knows when?
But why not take a shot? Why discount anything?
Exactly.
Jason Jensen told KSL it was in the exact location where her body was laid. There's a makeshift headstone out of a cross, and it's in a clearing where her body was found. It was right in the center of where her body would have been. In March 2021, news outlets reported that male DNA was found on the penny. Enough material was recovered to move to the next stage of identification and create a full DNA profile. This profile will be compared against profiles found on GEDmatch, a third-party database for raw DNA files. Jason Jensen noted that they planned on contacting Elizabeth's male friends and acquaintances to ask for DNA samples to rule out potential suspects. So there's a couple of things here for me. Very interesting that they were able to pull DNA off this penny, and in particular, male DNA.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that whoever this DNA belongs to had anything to do with Elizabeth's death, but you can't rule it out either.
No, but it opens the door for a potential interview of that person if
Sure.
they're still alive, and you can locate them.
Sure. Now, it's also a little bit scary to think that if you dropped something and then sometime later a body is found there, that you're going to be called in for questioning. Now, hopefully you got an alibi, but it could be years and years ago.
So this is why I don't never take my wallet out.
One of the reasons.
Something could fall out. And secondly, it's why I use my own developed alibi app.
But it is a little scary if you think about it.
No, it is. It is. Because you're going to be questioned. And if you don't have a good, this is where I was, this is what I was doing, you can be pulled into it.
Well, let me ask you this. March 23rd, 2020.
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago. Where were you? What were you doing? I'm a detective interviewing you now.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody would have a clue.
No, I don't even know what day of week that is.
Now, hopefully, if you gave me some time, I could go back through my planner or whatever, but I don't even know if I had that from 3 years ago.
All I can do at that point is say, I didn't have COVID yet because it was March of 2020.
That's true.
It was on its way. It was headed this direction.
Sergeant Spencer Cannon of the Utah County Sheriff's Office confirmed that detectives processed the site with metal detectors after Elizabeth's remains were found. In May 2018, DNA testing was done on evidence found at the burial site, but the testing was inconclusive. So that almost makes it sound as though they're a little leery about the penny.
Yeah. Did it arrive after the fact?
Or did they just miss it?
Yeah, that's possible too.
It's possible. The Salgado family experienced another tragedy in August 2021 when Elizabeth's aunt Miriam Salgado Figueroa went missing. 44-year-old Miriam was reported missing on August 19th, 2021. On August 20th, deputies from Washington County, Utah, found an abandoned vehicle on a dirt road in an unincorporated area outside of Virgin, near Zion National Park. When they ran the license plate, they saw that it was linked to a missing persons case filed in Nephi. The search team was unable to find Miriam. Family members said Miriam had mental health problems, and the police found her sleeping in her car in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. According to Rosenberg, Miriam did not like to keep in touch with them often. They became worried about her because of where her car was found. According to KSL, initial investigations found no suspicious circumstances, and the police saw no obvious connections between Miriam and Elizabeth's disappearances. On March 4th, 2023, a hiker found human remains in a remote area of Washington County in southern Utah. The police soon announced that the remains belonged to Miriam Salgado. Sergeant Spencer Cannon told KSL, "You at least have to let the question into your mind. Could there be someone who has it out for the Salgado family? We don't know that. We don't have any evidence suggesting that they do, but at the very least, it's unusual that another member of the family is now missing."
I think it raises some questions.
Yeah. I mean, the question that he posed, does someone have it out for the Salgado family? I think it's a little hard to really think that that's the case. I mean, look at how much time has passed.
Yeah.
Why would someone, if they had it out for the family, wait so long? And why Miriam? So those are questions that, you'd have to answer. And then you have the fact that she was found sleeping in her car. Family members said she was experiencing mental health issues. Rosenberg, Salgado, Miriam's brother, told Fox 13, "We're going through a very painful situation that no one would want to go through as a family. We don't know why things happen like this. We don't have the answers to that. How is it possible now 2 of my family members, they just find the remains? Obviously, there is someone that is out there killing people. They killed my niece and my sister. We don't know what happened to her. If there was another crime, and if it was the same person that did it to my niece, we don't know." On the 7th anniversary of Elizabeth's disappearance, her family appealed to church members for information about who Elizabeth befriended during her time in Provo. They also felt frustrated with how the investigation was progressing.
Well, I get it. Frustrated, but it's been 7 years. The police didn't have a lot of great leads.
They didn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah.
But this is also a constant refrain, right? How is a family not going to get frustrated as the years go on? They want answers. And until they get those answers, they're going to be more and more frustrated every year. And now you have the situation with Miriam.
Sure.
That adds to the frustration. In a Facebook post, Elizabeth's mother mentioned Mackie Smith, who, according to ABC4, lived in Elizabeth's apartment complex, but suddenly moved away after she went missing.
And that's always suspicious to people, right?
Yep. Could be a coincidence, could not be a coincidence. Jason Jensen told ABC4 that he cleared Smith as a suspect and said he was helpful in spreading the message about Elizabeth's case. But how many times have we seen a cleared suspect who actively helped in trying to find the missing person later, many years later, comes back around? It turns out they were the actual killer.
Yeah.
And they were wrongfully cleared.
And they like to be involved in the case.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this about Mackie Smith.
No.
I'm just saying it's happened. Jensen also noted that there was active construction at one location on Elizabeth's walking route. Someone reported that their coworkers may have done something, but this has not been verified. So that's pretty vague. May have done something.
Right.
But what I will say is that depending on what type of construction, that has been for many years a place for people to dispose of bodies. But we know Elizabeth's body wasn't disposed there. So I'm not really sure what they're saying other than maybe they're suspicious of a construction worker. In 2023, Sergeant Spencer Cannon told the Daily Universe that one of the main obstacles in the case was how long it takes to process and test evidence. And I think that's something that departments around the country, maybe around the world, are experiencing. Not just how long, but how expensive.
Well, that's it too.
It is. And how do you prioritize the backlog of things to be tested? We've talked about it before. How many rape kits are sitting in evidence rooms or wherever they're kept around the country waiting to be processed that could conceivably solve a lot of crime?
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of money and it takes time. Again, Jason Jensen said he was interested in information regarding a YSA activity that occurred shortly before Elizabeth went missing. The Provo YSA 10th stake met at Kelly's Grove Park in Hobble Creek Canyon on April 12, 2015. He told KSL that he and his team spent months working with multiple sources to confirm Elizabeth was at the event. He urged anyone who might have seen Elizabeth that day to come forward. Jensen told KSL the weekend before, when they had a picnic, a church activity at the Kelly's Grove Park at the base of Hobble Creek Canyon, she made plans with somebody that she was communicating with, talking to, socializing, that they would make a picnic trip, likely after school one day, and that happened to be the Thursday that she disappeared.
Okay. So getting a little traction with this.
It seems like it. And I think this kind of hit your radar when we talked about it earlier. You mentioned it, right? The people out there, the people who attended this event would have had some knowledge of the area because they would have been there, would have known maybe the remoteness of it, different areas. The church activity was 12 miles from where Elizabeth's body was found. The family wonders if Elizabeth and a friend chose to explore the area after the church activity. Jensen noted, it cannot be a coincidence that you're at the base of the canyon, 4 days later you're dead, and we feel that she was likely killed that day that she disappeared. Jensen believes Elizabeth was friends or acquaintances with her killer. It's possible that the person involved was trying to take her on a date and something went wrong. Jensen said, as quoted by the Daily Universe, one of the things that we have to consider is that she was taken against her will, but we also have to consider the possibility that she was taken by someone she knows. It's possible that somebody stopped and rolled their window down. Maybe they offered her a ride. Her being taken may have looked perfectly normal. And this is, I think, the one that is making the most sense to me. And we mentioned it, right? Fairly busy road, vehicles, pedestrians, middle of the day. Does it make sense that someone would snatch her off the street and force her into a vehicle without A, her screaming, or B, someone witnessing it? And my thought is probably not.
Yeah.
Does it make more sense that someone she knew stopped to either give her a ride, or it was a plan all along that this person would pick her up somewhere along the route as she was walking? And then maybe they had a plan for a picnic or whatever, but something got out of hand.
That person went too far.
They were afraid of the consequences and they killed her.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're working on theories, that theory makes the most sense to me.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, that's where I kind of sit with this case. But at the end of the day, I don't think you could discount she was potentially picked up by somebody that she didn't know, but also didn't feel threatened by it and got into the vehicle, but later regretted it.
No, I don't think you discount anything, but does that seem like a likely scenario? She's been in the country for less than 30 days.
Yeah.
She's not going to know too many people outside of her church friends, the people she works with at the restaurant, and people that she goes to school with.
And limited English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what stranger she would feel comfortable getting in the car with. from everything that we know about her background, she just didn't seem like the type of person to hop in a car with a stranger. But
no, here's a even more bizarre possibility that she went with this person that she knew, went to the park. Things got a little out of hand, and she's like, I'm out of here, because she didn't want to be with that person. Started hiking back home, and somebody came along and picked her up.
Yeah.
And that person ended up being worse than
the person she was with.
Yeah.
But maybe that person she was with is afraid to come forward.
Right.
Because of what happened, or trying to explain what happened.
Sure.
It's not a bad possibility at all. And like I always say, why take something off the table unless you can prove that it shouldn't be on there? It's been 8 years since Elizabeth Salgado went missing, and 5 years since her remains were found. Although Elizabeth was an intelligent and capable woman, she was vulnerable because, she was surrounded by strangers in Provo. You just mentioned it, Gibbs. She didn't speak a lot of English. It's possible that someone thought she was an easy target and abducted her on her walk home, then killed her and left her remains in Hobble Creek Canyon. That is a possibility, but to me, that is not the most likely possibility. I think it's more likely that she got into a car, or at the very least met up with somehow someone she knew, someone she had made plans with.
Yeah.
And something went very wrong. But if you have any information about the church activity that took place on April 12th, 2015, or anything having to do with the murder of Elizabeth Salgado, you can call the Utah County Sheriff's Office at 801-851-4000 or Jason Jensen at 801-759-2248. So that's it for our episode on the murder of Elizabeth Salgado. It's a puzzling one. Part of it is because they just don't have a ton to go on.
Right.
It'd be interesting to find out if they could ever match the DNA on the penny. That, I think it's a long shot.
I do too.
Because anybody could have dropped that penny, and we don't even know what time frame the penny was dropped. The revelation by Jason Jensen that she was planning a picnic with someone, that is what is really jumping out at me. I'm surprised that someone else that was there didn't know about it.
Right.
Now, if that person is the one who actually killed her, obviously there's no benefit for that person to come forward.
Nor would they ever.
But you would think that somebody else that was there would have either overheard it, or she would have mentioned it to someone.
Yeah.
Either her church friends or someone she worked with. But, so far, either she didn't do that, or people have just been unwilling to come forward with the information. But we got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Yeah, let's hear them.
Good morning, Mike and Gibby. This is Jana from Denver, High City, for many reasons. Was just listening and wanted to let you know that I really, really appreciate everything that you guys do. I have a son who has severe autism, and we're going through a lot with him right now. And you guys are sort of my getaway from that, just after he goes to bed, or when I'm on my way to pick him up or drop him off from therapy, I, have my Mike and Gibby time, and it really helps. My anxiety, I know that sounds really weird, but it just gives me something else to focus on rather than what's going on in my life. And I can't thank you enough for what you're doing for me right now. Hopefully over the next couple months, things will calm down and we'll get back into a routine, and my son will calm down. And it just really means a lot to me that I have you guys there to listen to. And I hope that you have a wonderful September, because I can't believe it's already almost September. And stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Bye from Denver.
Well, we've heard that before. And first, let me say, I hate to hear that. I'm sorry that, you're going through such a tough time. We've talked to so many parents of children with autism, and we know what a struggle it can be. But I'm glad when the podcast can help anyone in any small way.
Sure.
It's one of the things that we never thought about when starting this thing. We thought we would, tell stories and there would be some entertainment value, but therapeutic value, if I'm using the right word, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
But people have said that, and that's really cool.
And we love our Denver peeps.
Yep, we do. So hang in there, and like you said, it will get better.
It will.
Hi, guys. I just listened to TCAT Unsolved Leslie Ball episode, and Gibby, I love your new Gibbyism. That was a great show, you guys. I also want to tell you that I want to tell you how much I appreciate Gibby chiming in more often than he used to. It just thrills me to hear more from Gibby. And I know a few months ago I called him and said that, but it is just a treat to hear more from Gibby on your subjects and Fergie. I once wrote to you and called you Professor Fergie. I still think you would make a great professor. The way you present the material, the case and everything, I just think that, and then you and Gibby will discuss it and you'll come up with discussions, and I always want to chime in and say with my thoughts about the case. And that's what makes a good professor, one who can really get students discussing a subject. So, Professor Fergie and Gibby, stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Bye-bye. Oh, this is Candace from Arizona. Bye.
Hey, Candace, he does make me call him the professor sometimes, too. So, it's fitting.
Yeah, not on the podcast, but just in everyday general life.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we've heard a lot of that, though. Man, Gibby's been talking a lot. And, let's be fair. You went through some rough stuff, man.
I did.
And
yeah,
I feel like you're back to where you were before. And a lot of people are noticing it, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's more fun for us because we get to get into it. But I think you'll just hear more and more of that from the Gib man.
I'm like Backstreet Boys. I'm back from whatever their songs.
Why do you go Backstreet Boys if you don't know?
You're the one that had their poster on the wall, not me. It was right next to your 98 Degrees and your other.
Oh, you just the fact that you even know more than two boy bands just
because you still have the posters up
completely
here.
Gave you away, and that came out quickly. Yeah. 98 Degrees. You were about ready to say some more before you saw my face.
Is that what it was?
And then you pulled back.
I know you're a Nick Lachey fan.
Actually, my wife and I used to watch the reality show with Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson.
There you go.
That was our guilty pleasure. I can't even remember what it was called. But
yeah, you too.
Back when they were married and they had their own reality show. And it was actually kind of funny. All right, let's get out of here. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
See what hit blockbusters are streaming free this month during Popcorn Summer Movies on Pluto TV. Watch Django Unchained or Transformers Dark of the Moon for an action-packed evening, or The Truman Show and School of Rock for a good laugh with the whole family. Plus, Pluto TV has thousands of other free movies available on live and on demand. Download Pluto TV on all your favorite devices for free and start streaming now.